G'day and welcome. I'm Peter Bender from Bundaberg Commercial, and today we're going to talk about the success factors of small business. Now, all and sundry will tell you about how hard it is to make a successful small business. And that's probably right, but probably the first thing I want to explain to people is when you hear the rumours of 95% failure rate, just ignore listening to that person. Go, no, not listening to you, because 9 times out of 10, that is just folklore. And we're not interested in folklore. Today, I'm going to go through a research project that I took, which was 9 months worth of work, having a look at what it really takes to make a small business successful. And I'm going to give you that 9 months worth of work and cram it in about 10 minutes. So hang on to your chairs. Make sure you've got the pen and paper there, or if you haven't got that, at least the button that allows you to go rewind. And we're going to go and do a journey and explaining what it really takes to make a successful small business. Now, there's 3 areas that we're going to have a look at. One is we're going to have a look at what researchers say. Now, these are the people who spend all day, every day researching all sorts of stuff. Sometimes they're specialists, sometimes they're generalists, sometimes they do a lot of work in the area of business, sometimes it's just a particular topic that they have. But we're going to have a look at what the most common areas are that researchers say is important for success for a small business. Then we're going to have a look at what they teach. So we're going to look at the big end of town, so the Ivy League colleges, looking at the European colleges as well, and seeing what they are actually teaching to business people, but those who are in place already in business and those who are starting. Because you think that when you're charging $250,000 for an MBA, that you should know what you're talking about, and you'd assume that the material that they give you is going to be worthwhile. Well, let's see what happens. And then finally, we're going to look at what entrepreneurs say, because every entrepreneur reckons they've got a great business and knows how to make it run. So that is the material that I had put together for my master's. And I have a master's in leadership, among other qualifications. And one of the components of that qualification is a 9-month project, and I decided to sit down and have a good solid look and a think and contemplate my navel and look at everything that was available, talk to a lot of people, read a lot of books to see if I can nut out what the things are. All right, without further ado, what is it that researchers say? Well, researchers, they actually come up and say the most important things that you need to be successful in a small business is you need to have strategic management skills, and you need to have business management skills. Now, strategic management, that's pretty easy to understand in regards to, if you look at books like Blue Ocean Strategy is probably a great one. Have a look at Good to Great. Is another good aspect in regards to strategic management, and anything from Peter Drucker. It's a little bit old, but I tell you what, the material is amazing. It's very much about looking for acquisition targets, looking for ways to implement new plans, looking for new territories. It's all about big long-term thinking, and there's a lot of validity in that. The researchers are saying that. On the other side of the coin, however, I find that a lot of businesses who have failed haven't failed because of strategic thoughts. They have good plans. It's more a fact that they failed before those strategic plans have been able to be put in place. So I'd balance that off. Is it really the most important thing to a business to have a strategic plan? Probably not. There's other real skills like getting cash in the bank and getting customers, those sort of type things that will overcome shortfalls in strategic management. Now, when they talk about business management skills, there's so many different definitions out there. It really depends on almost everything that's in a fruit bowl, for argument's sake, is classed as business management. It's HR, it's accountancy, it's finance, it's law, all range of aspects in regards to what they consider is a critical success factor to make it in small business. And I'll sit there and say, management skills are good, but once again, if you looked at the balance, I have seen many good managers fail miserably at their own business. I see it all the time, actually. I've seen people who have been very successful in large organisations, have fantastic management skills, fantastic leadership skills. Then they go out and do their own thing, and they collapse in 6 months. I remember one time I worked in the Australian Taxation Office, and one of the guys picked up a redundancy. He says, "Yeah, see you later. Hate working here. Don't want to be doing this no more. Public service job. I'm out of here. I'm off to do my own thing." And 2 weeks later, my phone rang, and he was on the other end of the line. And I thought, "Hey, what you doing back there?" He said, "Oh, it's tough out there. Couldn't handle it. Came back out of this cushy job back." Really? Come on. So, yeah, and he was a good manager. Just terrible at running a business. So I think what the researchers say, there's a lot of work in there, but are they the most important things? Probably not. I think when you look at good business management skills and good strategic management skills, that's probably at the stage when you've had maybe 3 years business experience and you're looking to expand. All right, so if Peter doesn't think that that's the answer, maybe the universities do. I mean, surely anyone that charges that much money for education has to know what they're teaching. So I often go around in the group and I say, well, what do you think the most important things are in business, particularly small business success? And, everyone will have a few ideas. And I say, well, if you look at all the universities, they generally have 2 types of subjects which are similar. And they very much are the law subjects and the accountancy subjects. So by looking at that, and they're always the core subjects, they're not the hierarchy elective subjects. So if they're core subjects, the most common ones are law and accountancy, you'd tend to think that that's what they think is most important. Now, running a small business, there's a lot of compliance and there's a lot of law involved, but is it the most important thing if you got your legal side right? I don't think so. If you look at the financial side, they even break that down a little bit, as accountants will, into accountancy and financial management. Now, accountancy is very much the transactions and the profit and loss statements and balance sheets. Look, I reckon if you can't read a profit and loss sheet and a balance sheet, then you will struggle in business, particularly after the first month when you're trying to work out how much money have you got, where is it going, and am I going to have enough for the next month? The financial management, that is more in regards to working out models and costings and ratios, using the data out of your accountancy package and making meaningful decisions on it. Now, financial management is very closely aligned to strategic management. So you put the two together and you're starting to get a little bit of a pattern there with what the researchers say. But once again, I've seen people who have no ability to do math, and hey, I'm pretty much in that category to some extent, but they may have a good bookkeeper or they may have a good accountant. I delegate it off, and it doesn't make any difference to them whether they've made a successful business or not, as long as you have some facility in there. All right, so what about those who are on the coalface? What are those who actually are involved in businesses? What is it that they consider is most important? Now, I've done a lot of businesses, and the last 4 years since Bundaberg Commercial is a last business that I've had, a current one as well, but I've had other ones as well. And this research that I did for my master's was 10 years ago. And after that period, I was a business consultant for about a decade in various parts, and I am a business broker, so I'm still heavily involved in business. So I talk to and see a lot of people. And the things that we look at is cash flow is definitely one of the big aspects. Cash flow, if you can't manage your cash, you're in real trouble, because that's the fastest thing that'll shut down your business. Now, what I mean by cash flow, if you're in a situation where you're hoping that next week's sales are going to pay for last week's bills, then you're not in a healthy situation. You need to be in a position where you've got at least 3 months cash backing behind you, and you've got less than 30% debt with your business. If you have those sort of brackets in those equations, you're doing okay. Now, don't let people fool you into thinking you need a lot of money to start businesses. Hey, I've been down that road. My first business, cost me about $250,000 by the time I outfitted the premises, did the renovations, built it, got everything started up, organised. And it was a miserable failure. It was great from customer service point of view, but it was a financial disaster. What happened? Couldn't manage the cash flow. It was rising, it was coming in quick, but it wasn't coming in quick enough. Oh boy, the reality of some of the life lessons that you have. The last several businesses I've had, I've started with $500. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I don't start a business now with more than $500. If you can't make it work with $500, you aren't going to make it work with $5,000. And people out there saying, "What? It cost me business cards is $375. What do you do with it?" Well, one of the things is in regards to managing that cash flow. I will often do things like find your customer, get your customer first, and get them to pay in advance. Those first few ones who are usually happy to come on board with you, they're happy to pay you a deposit, and you can use that deposit to then start paying for your bills outside the $500. That's what I mean by managing cash flow. Now, you're looking at the other thing that is most important, and I touched on it, is you need an innate ability to find more customers all day, every day. You've got to keep finding them and growing them. I was at the Chamber of Commerce meeting today, and one of the guys I've known for years has just gone out on his own. He says, "Oh, I can't believe I've got to go and talk to customers and try and drum up business. I don't want to do that." I said, "Look, you want to get good at it and you want to keep doing it, otherwise you ain't going to be handing out business cards for very long. You need to make sure you have an innate ability." When I started commercial real estate, probably the second thing that they taught me, the first thing was that money changes people. Oh, and ain't that a point of view? But the second thing they said is you need to list to last. Now, what that means in real estate is you need to constantly get new customers who are listing with you. If you've got no listings, you're not making business. I spoke to one of my friends who is in residential real estate, and he's got no listings right now. It is tough out there. Well, you ain't going to be getting customers if you're not listing. Similarly, this is why I think the two most important things that are practical for a small business, here's the key points and the flashy globes, is make sure you know how to manage your cash, and secondly, have an innate ability to gather and create new customers all the time. Whether that's new product lines or whether that's your social media marketing, make sure it works. I have another video which is talks about advertising 7 ways. That is a key that I found over the years. If you advertise 7 ways, you generally always have a stream of customers coming in. That is probably the final bit that I had from the research. Now, fast forward another 10 years, because this research is really weird. It came up it's almost 10 years to the day when I finished my master's. So why it popped up on my radar, I don't know. I had to think, what has changed in 10 years? I think probably the only thing that I could really say is it is tougher now to get in business than it was 10 years ago. And it was tougher to get in business 10 years ago than it was 20 years ago, which is when I started my first businesses. And prior to that is when my dad started his businesses. He was a serial entrepreneur. Yes, the apple hasn't fallen far from the tree. And he's always saying that it was harder at the end of his tenure than it was at the start. And nowadays, it's harder than it ever has been before. Now, there's all sorts of reasons. There's more competition, there's more technology, there's more compliance. Government is not helping at all. Next month, they're actually going to put another 10 pages on the commercial contracts for commercial realtors. That's not making my life any easier. It's making it harder. It's making paperwork longer. And this is what it's about. So I think if you added one extra thing to, you got cash flow and the ability to get new customers, I think one extra thing that you would add in there is a toughness. You need to be resilient. You need to be able to get through that terrible period. And that terrible period is usually about the second year. The first year is pretty cool because you're full of enthusiasm. Everyone wants to help you, and you got a fair bit of work coming out. The second year, your enthusiasm waned a little bit because you haven't had holiday in 12 months. It's the first time you haven't had holiday in ages. Forget having a holiday if you're starting a small business, and those initial people, the friends and support you have, you've used them up. So now it's hard yakka getting that territory. And that's the time when you feel like you're in a valley, you're walking bare feet, it's all broken glass, and it's just painful. Now, if you can get through that period, even if it's just day by day, hour by hour, keep focusing on what the next customer is, what the next contract is, who is it that's going to give you the next dollar to float your till. Make sure you focus on those things. If you can get through that period and be resilient and be tough, I think that is probably the trio of critical success factors for small business. Leave me your comments. Let me know what you think. I'm always happy for opinions. And I'll also put a link in there for, if you're that way inclined, you can send me an email and I'll actually send you the full research paper. It's about 60 pages long. And it goes through everything in regards to what various people think success factors for a small business are. Okay. Take care and God bless.